PR Connections Radio presents.
Hello there, and welcome to the Sunday Morning Chat Series with Jesse Oakley III, and I am your host, Jesse Oakley III. Now, the purpose of the Sunday Morning Chat Series is I get to interview a plethora of positive people making big differences in their communities. You name it, singers, podcasters, authors, entertainers, you name it, you'll hear from it right here first on the Sunday Morning Chat Series. And today, we have ourselves a real treat. Now, this is a gentleman that I had in the past, and he has this wonderful podcast called Voice4Chefs. And to get a great understanding on what this is all about, I do have an introduction for him. Now, Chef Michael holds degrees in culinary art and hotel restaurant administration and began in the hospitality industry before transitioning into a successful tech career in 1995. In 2021, he launched the Voice4Chefs podcast, now heard in 72 countries, connecting audiences with cult chefs and culinary audiences worldwide. He is currently developing a keynote to inspire Toastmasters to share their message throughout podcasting. And we're both Toastmasters, and this is going to be an amazing interview. Now, please help me welcome Voice4Chefs' own Michael Dugan. Hey, Michael, how's it going?
Wonderful, Jesse. And I got to tell you how thrilled I am to be with you. I'm a fan. Okay. I'm a fan of what you're doing. I'm a fan of your book. I'm a fan of just how much positivity you put out in the world. And so I'm just really honored to be back with you.
All right. This is fantastic. And without any further delay, let's chat.
Okay. Let's do it.
All right. Now, why did you create the Voice4Chefs podcast? What was your motivation?
There are so many things, Jesse, but just to take you back, I spent 10 years in the restaurant business, and I left because of a drive-by shooting and some other things. Just the conditions were so hard. And so when the pandemic hit, Governor Jay Inslee back in 2020, I think it was March of 2020, he shut down all restaurants in Seattle. And then I looked around the world, and it was like Washington. It was all across the country. It was all across the world. You know, cruise ships are shutting down. Restaurants are shutting down. And I talked to some of the people in the industry, and they lost their jobs. They lost hope. They lost everything. So I woke up one day with the idea that chefs need a voice. And I struggled with a name for a long time. And then I came up with Voice4Chefs. A friend of mine, Linda Horthman, told me, she said, why don't you use a number in your domain? And because Voice4Chefs was taken. And I thought, that's a pretty cool idea. So it was both my wife and Linda and some other people gave me these ideas, and I went, Voice4Chefs. It has to be Voice4Chefs. And so it's all about connecting chefs and people that are in the chef circle. It could be anywhere from a restaurant owner to a waiter. I interviewed Sam, who worked in a Japanese restaurant, one of my first episodes, to an owner, to just anybody in hospitality, private chefs, executive chefs, celebrity chefs. So it's the whole circle. And that's really why.
Oh, that's truly fantastic. And you talked about the guests that were there for your podcast, Voice4Chefs. Now, I have a question for you is, where do you actually find guests? Where do you actually go? And how do you do it?
So that is really interesting because when I started, as you know, sometimes in the beginning, it's hard to get guests. It's hard to find like that right mix, right? How is that going to fit with my show? And I'm like, I need to get chefs. So I started calling restaurants in Seattle and waiting a month for an owner to respond back and say, yes, you could interview my chef. But then I started to connect to the community. And then all of a sudden, people from Seattle were calling me, people from around the country were calling me, and then people from around the world were calling me, texting me through Instagram and Facebook and all over the world. And so now it's a global podcast instead of a local podcast, but that's how it evolved.
Oh my goodness. It all began with that domino, and then it goes from one domino to another domino.
Right.
And then you have the success here for Voice4Chefs. And I tell you what, you guys stayed the course, and look at what came of it. My goodness.
Yeah, it's amazing. I am so grateful to our guests and the listeners. I can't even tell you. We're in 72 countries now, and I cannot believe it.
72 countries. My goodness, this is truly fantastic. Now, the key thing is the next question I have to ask for you is you talk about the Voice for Chefs. We talk about the guest. Now, where has this podcast taken you?
Well, again, all over the world. So, if you can imagine, when I started, it was kind of a Toastmaster project, right? It was a high performance leadership project. And I got people together. A big shout out to Kyle Hall because I went to one of his seminars about advanced podcast, um, you know, presentations, right, and projects. And he said, level 4, level 5, podcast and high performance leadership project will launch your podcast. And so I listened to his advice. I put everything together, and then I said, "God, you need to be on my committee." And he was like, "No, no, no, I don't know about that." And I begged him, and then he joined my committee, and the vision was incredible. And so it it led to a lot of places. Um, it took me all over the world because I joined Clubhouse. And if people don't know what Clubhouse is or was, it's changed a lot. It's not as popular as it used to be, but it is an audio only podcast, or it's an audio only platform that you can join on your phone. And when you do, it's kind of like you're in a room where people are talking, and it's almost like they're having table topics or conversations, and the person in charge is like the Toastmaster. They're running the conversation. Except you can have 100 people, you could have 1,000 people, you could have 10 people. And I joined a club called Food is Religion. And there were 5,000 people around the world in this club. Now, it didn't mean, Jesse, that 5,000 people are joining their meetings, but they had meetings running all day, every day, and people were hosting it. And I became really close friends with Stephanie Land, and I want to give her a huge shout out because she was somebody that I called when we were up in the mountains in Seattle, getting ready for breakfast, and I really wanted to talk to a Michelin trained or Michelin star chef. That was one of my dreams when I started the podcast. So I called her up in Florida, and I knew she was on Clubhouse, and we got in this conversation. She said, "You should join Food is Religion." So I did. And then she had me doing audio only cooking classes with chefs from all over the world. She had me doing food talk shows with chefs from all over the world. And honestly, it wasn't even for my podcast. It was for Clubhouse. It was for Food is Religion. The next thing you know, I joined the officer group, and she's given me all these incredible opportunities to meet people, to work with people, to develop people. We grew that club, and I didn't do it. I'm talking we, right? There were a
Right.
lot of people involved. I had a small part, but we grew it from 5,000 to 8,500 in a year and a half. And
Ooh.
my podcast started getting hits from different countries because a lot of people from Food is Religion, then they shared it. And then these chefs started reaching out. And, that's where it took me so many places. I can't even begin to tell you where it took me. But in Toastmasters, I just recently joined a club called Podmasters, and huge shout out to Podmasters. And Fred Bergeron, oh my gosh, he started this club. It's a small club. We're growing. We want people to come. I'm personally going to invite you to interview in Podmasters, Jesse, because I've been thinking about it since day one, and I really want to do that with you, and I want to honor you there. So that's a personal invite. But these are the things that happen, right, to us, and the doors swing wide open. I mean, I was in stage time for 2 years, right? To get
Mhm.
over imposter syndrome, to work with people. And if you don't know about stage time is where Darren LaCroix, Mark Brown, Jennifer Leone, and there's several other amazing coaches from around the world coach people on becoming a world champion, on becoming a better professional speaker. Darren has created this incredible educational community, and I learned so much in that community. It gave me more confidence to become a podcaster, right? So this has taken me all over the world. I am incredibly grateful to the people that have helped me. And there's so many more, but those are a few that I really wanted to bring up and just kind of explain those doors that open.
All right, Michael, could you repeat the names one more time?
Absolutely. So Chef Mimi Lan, Mark Brown, who's a world champion in public speaking and a coach, Darren LaCroix, also a world champion. Jennifer Leone is an international uh, speaking coach from Australia, and those are a few. Um, is there anybody I'm forgetting? There's a lot more, but honestly, those are people I think of in the top of my mind. And there's one more too, if I'm doing shout outs. Jensen Cummings is epic. He runs a podcast called Best Served. Over 500,000 people have followed him. Or sorry, 50,000. 50,000, I think it is. But probably even more, honestly, because he's just epic. I had him on my show because of Chef Mimi, and I was just incredibly excited and felt energized. I followed him for a long time. He's one of my idols. But we've done a lot of collaborations together. Again, the doors open. And it's amazing what happens when you do a podcast.
Oh, it certainly is. And for your Toastmasters Club, I accept your invitation.
Good.
So I want to
Good.
so give me more details, and I will
I
definitely.
will. We have to do it, Jesse. I mean, we just have to do it.
Hey, I'm there. I'm there.
And it'll be short. I promise it'll be short. But yeah, but these opportunities, these things that are happening are incredible. There's one more too. I got to mention this because Chef Mimi connected me to this organization called MAP, M-A-P-P. And what this organization is a nonprofit in hospitality. It started with Joanna James, who launched a movie called A Fine Line. And it's all about elevating women in hospitality because if you look back at history, they were never rising to the top. And she is an advocate for rights, for advocacy, for mentorship, for opportunities, for even scholarships, right? And I just love this organization. So they asked me to become an ambassador for MAP. And I'm flying out to Vegas at the end of March. I know you live in Vegas. Maybe we'll connect. That would be amazing. I'm going to be in the Wynn for two days at a conference, and female chefs and hospitality people are going to be there from all over the country. And so it's their 5-year anniversary, and I am so excited because I get to meet Chef Mimi, I get to meet Joanna, and many others, and I just can't tell you how excited I am about it. And again, these are the doors that swing wide open when you become a podcaster.
Oh my goodness, this is truly fantastic, and get to meet all these people and these different connections. I tell you, it's already going, and man, I just remember the first time we did this podcast together on the Someone series. We were right there, and look at where it is right now. Boom.
Oh, Jesse, I was so green. I was not nervous. I just didn't really know how to have those conversations, right? This is special. This is really special. And, to encourage people as Toastmasters, as listeners, become a podcaster. If you've been in Toastmasters, you have the skills already to do it. You just need to learn a little bit about the technology, and you can always reach out, come to Podmasters and we can teach you as well. But I got to tell you, I feel so different now than I did the first time we met.
I tell you, and it does make a big difference. Now, let's talk about guests on your show. Oh my. Got to talk about those guests now. What were some of the most unique guests you had on your show?
Mm-hmm. Okay, sure. So thinking about, I've got to think back. It's 3.5 years now, and I have about 75 plus episodes. I do it part-time. I don't release every week. I do it typically once a month, twice a month. So Andy LaRusso is the singing chef. He sings and cooks Italian. He is a, what do you call it? He is a singer, but also a chef. So he's traveled around the world and cooked in big casinos in Vegas as well. He comes there.
All right.
And he does these shows. And, he played or performed at the Isle of Wight Festival in, I think it's Ireland.
Okay.
With Sting. Sting was on a second stage. Wow. So I have this recorded on my episode, and he sung on my episode. He's an epic recording artist, or he was. And then he built a business around cooking and singing and brilliant. He was on the Donnie and Marie show back in the day for like a year. They were friends. So for me, that was my first celebrity, right? And I got chills and we became friends. We've been friends for 3.5 years. We keep in touch all the time. He's super excited about the podcast still. And then there was recently Tom Douglas, who is my idol. And if people don't know, look him up, but he is one of the top chefs in the US. He's brought amazing restaurants and cuisine to Seattle. And Tom was great. Becky Guzak is his producer of the Hot Stove Radio Show. It's a radio show locally here, Cairo Radio. They actually built a restaurant kitchen, a commercial kitchen inside a hotel with a radio show. So you go and you sit down and you watch the show pre-recorded, like, and literally they serve you breakfast and then chefs come on microphones and Becky's the producer and I interviewed Becky. And that was amazing because she's a podcaster too, right? So when you get that synergy going, I mean, we're listening to each other, right? We're not trying to interrupt each other and there's love and there's respect. It's amazing. So Becky was another one. Out of the blue, you got to be careful online because there's a lot of scams. So I thought I was getting scammed and somebody reached out and said, we have a very special person from the Auguste Escoffier Institute in Colorado, one of the top cooking schools in the country.
All right.
She said, we'd like you to interview our 4th generation chef. Now, I didn't know this, so I reached out to his assistant. Well, it turned out it's the president of the cooking school that I interviewed with, has his own podcast. He's interviewed the top chefs in the world. And him and I just had the best time, just like we're doing right now. It was that kind of conversation, that intimate experience. And we did it. And he goes, you're really good at this. I said, yeah, I know. 3.5 years and Toastmasters, right? I mean, seriously, Jesse, you know, that was epic. But I mean, I have a laundry list of people. I'm just checking a quick note that I made. But Tom and Becky and Jensen, again, he started his podcast, I don't know, 5 years ago from his car with a cell phone and a little microphone. And he became epic. And like to meet with him, to collaborate with him, he got a degree in philosophy and he's a 4th generation chef. His whole family were chefs. His philosophy on the business, it kept me going, man. When I hit those tough times, I was like, oh my God, I felt so energized with him, right? And all these things keep happening and all these doors keep opening, you know, and so my guests are very special. But the thing I got to communicate out there to the world right now is that it's not about you. Yes. It is not about you. It's about your guests. It's about your listeners. It's about the people in that community. And that's what podcasting is really about.
Amen. That you just hit the nail right there on the head, Michael. Woo! Yeah. Man, that's
I mean, I know you see that. Happy people. I mean, it's such a real thing, right? And you're spreading that around the world. And it's so powerful. I do that with chefs. I do that with the culinary community. But it's just so powerful, you know? And I'll tell you, I feel really fortunate. I feel really lucky. And I've been thinking about stopping, and then all this energy comes back. And I'm like, oh my gosh, these doors keep opening. And I'm like, oh man. Anyway.
Gotta go through those doors, man.
Yeah. Yep.
Now the next question I have for you is, there be somebody that's amazed and inspired by what we're doing as podcasters. And there's been that one person out there that's seeing the Voice4Chefs podcast and all these episodes with these amazing people that you've interviewed. And they want to be in your shoes. If you could give any advice for that person who wants to be in your shoes, what advice would you give?
Well, the first thing, and I wish I remembered her last name because I want to honor her. I love this statement. I took a podcasting course through Stage Time, and Amber is teaching part of this course. And the one thing she said, and I'll have to get her name, we'll have to put it in there somehow, but Amber said, start before you're ready. And that just resonated with me because I held back. I waited 6 months to launch the podcast, maybe 8 months. I was ready. I just mentally said, you've got imposter syndrome. You got to get over this. So that's one. The second thing is Darren LaCroix has this brilliant idea that he started a long time ago, and you may have seen it. You may have participated, Jesse. Others may have. It's called the 77-day challenge.
Yes.
You get yourself out there every day and just post a Facebook Live video for 2 minutes. Sometimes 5, sometimes 2. Do it every single day, and you will start to get over imposter syndrome. It will happen magically. And you'll feel weird about it when you start. But when you look back, you're going to be like, wow. And don't quit. Do not stop. No matter whatever your message is, you want to share a lesson, share an idea, but put it out there. So start before you're ready, 77-day challenge. And the final thing, Craig Valentine, who I absolutely love, 1999 world champion of public speaking. Absolutely love him. He's been to our district, the district I was in for a while, called District 32 or District 2, sorry.
Right.
He came for conferences. He said, it's not about perfection. It's about connection. I live my life for connection in podcasting and my life. If you recognize that, you'll succeed. You'll have an amazing time.
Let's go. And I tell you, you talk about the Darren LaCroix, the Craig Valentine.
Oh,
For me, it was Evan Carmichael, who was a YouTube.
Oh,
and actually,
okay.
I met Evan Carmichael at the tour in 2019, and he actually believed to actually get to start on a podcast and got to start thanks to Evan. So it's always
wow.
right now, and you have Darren, you have people likes of Darren, you have likes of Craig, you have likes of Evan. So you never know unless you take your first steps and believe.
I absolutely agree with you. I kind of did it on my own in the beginning, but it was really Kyle. And I love Kyle. He was number 3 in the world, and he's super humble. He's in District 32. If you meet him, you'll know. He just helps so many people. And I'll never forget, just real quick, but in our HPL project, we had 5 sessions, an hour each session. We were building mission, vision, and value, and lots of things. The real mission at the time was to launch the podcast, right?
Yeah.
But Kyle said to me, he said, okay, it's 2 years now. Who do you want to interview? Like, what is your ultimate chef? And I said in the very beginning, Tom Douglas. And last year, during Tom's radio show, at the end of the radio show, we're all taking a break. He's walking back in his office. I came out of the bathroom. I'm not kidding you. I came out of the bathroom. I washed my hands, of course, but I have to say that because people are like, whoa. I know, Jesse, man. I know. But the thing is, right, I was determined and I was nervous. And then after 3 years or whatever of podcasting, I hit imposter syndrome. I'm like, this is an amazing chef. This is my idol, right? For 30 years, I followed him, okay? I walked into his office. He was just hanging out. I looked him straight in the eye and I said, Tom, do you have a minute? And he goes, yeah. And I said, I'm a podcaster and I interview chefs, mostly Seattle, US, and a bunch around the world. Would you be interested in an interview? Because I would love to share your story. And he looks up at me and he goes, what's the name of your podcast? And I said, Voice4Chefs. And he just stopped and he goes, I love it. He goes, call my assistant. And I'm like, am I being blown off or is it really happening? And yeah, it really happened. So to Kyle, he knows I got Tom Douglas. It was amazing. And I'm still going. And who I really want to interview now, and you're not going to believe it, is Jose Andre, because of the work that he's doing right now all over the world. And he's now in LA working with the firefighters. And I just did an episode with a chef named Johnny Sanchez, who's the executive chef of the Brasserie. And to me, he's in LA and they had to close it. So I just put it out and I asked people to donate to American Red Cross in LA, right? Because I just feel so connected to that right now. And anyway, but Jose Andre is doing that there. And I really want to talk to people in the World Kitchen. That's kind of next for me because they're just doing amazing work. And it's called Kendall's Brasserie in Los Angeles. He's the new executive chef. But anyway, to ramble on just a little bit, but Jose Andre is really my next guy.
Cool. Very cool. Now, how can more people, what could they actually go for Voice4Chefs and check out your podcast? What could actually go?
Sure. So where can you go to check out the podcast? Well, you
Yeah.
see the name right here, Voice for Chefs. It's VOICE for the number 4 chefs. You can go to voice4chefs.com. You can go to my Instagram and you could just click on Linktree and all the episodes will be right at the top. You can also go to wherever you listen to your podcast. So if you're in Google, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple's probably the most popular. You can
Right.
go there too and consider becoming a follower. The other thing I would say is if you want to be part of Voice for Chefs, I am looking for people that are really passionate about the idea of connecting to chefs. I love to teach, I love to share, and I will connect you to some of our guests who are absolutely amazing around the world. And I could always use a little help because doing it on your own, there's a lot. I love it, but there's a lot.
I tell you, and I'm doing this right now on my phone, Voice
Yeah,
for Chefs podcast, and I'm doing right here. And I tell you, I'm going to go ahead and I am going to actually subscribe to Voice for Chefs podcast right here. And we do have it right there. And I tell you what, you, my friend, are going to have yourself a brand new subscriber
I love
right
it.
there. It's not easy. It's not easy, hi people. But just go
Yeah,
to your
it's very
phone,
easy.
or go to YouTube like Voice for Chefs and just go ahead and subscribe. And once you subscribe, bam, you're in like Flynn.
And
Right
and the
there.
thing is, reach out. Let me know that you heard this episode with Jesse. Always when
Michael. Now these are amazing stories that you share with us, and we had a fun time here on this podcast. And I got to tell you, this, this is going to be awesome, and I really look forward to being part of your Toastmasters and being a part of what you can, and really appreciate it big time. Now, the last question I have for you is for my crew and my fans. They're known as
Mhm.
the happy people, and they always love some good words of wisdom from the guests I've interviewed. So if you have any wise words of wisdom for my crew, my people, the happy people, what would it be?
Okay, so as far as words of wisdom, Craig Valentine once told me it's not about perfection, it's about connection. And I live by that in the podcast, in my life, in my career. Adopt adopt that because the connections that you make in podcasting in this arena where we are here, I've just made a new friend. Jesse, you're amazing and you just spread this incredible energy around the world. And I do the same thing with chefs in the culinary community, but living that and what it also means is I have to edit my own podcast and I'm really picky. And the problem or the challenge is as a Toastmaster, when you think about counting the ahs and ums, that can drive you into the ground. So don't be a perfectionist, so much when you're doing this. You got to let a little bit of it go. But think about it as it's about the connection. It's about the people that you're going to meet on this journey and the doors that we talked about that swing wide open. Very powerful. The second one, and I really want to get her last name, and I apologize, Amber, if you ever hear this, but I took a class with Stagehime University through Darren. He said, you've got to take the podcasting class. So, yes, I bit the bullet. I took it. I'm so glad I did. Amber said, start before you're ready.
Yes.
Start before you're ready because we hold back because of imposter syndrome, and we're worried about what people are going to think. And the other thing, Jesse, I haven't shared yet is I
Right.
was worried about what my family was going to think when I launched the podcast. I was worried about my friends. Nobody cared, right? Nobody cared. And then I find out that quietly they've been listening all along and they start telling me that it's amazing. My brother's in London right now. I see him listening. He's 75 episodes. He just picked it up. I know it was him. I know where he is. I'm like, yep, he just picked it up. But get over that imposter syndrome right away. And another thing, too, you are the conductor of the symphony. You are the conductor. If you're doing an interview style podcast like Jesse and I are, it's all about communication, it's all about conversation. Don't cut people off, work with them, give them the confidence, give your guests that confidence. You're taking a journey every time you interview with a guest. You're the one that's the conductor. You're creating and cultivating an amazing series of stories for your listeners and for your guests. They may have never been on a podcast before. They may be nervous. You, as a Toastmaster, it's kind of like you have that responsibility to help them develop. Because remember, if it's Toastmasters or in anything, remember when you were nervous the first time you had to give a speech or a presentation? It's the same thing in podcasting. And you have the skills to succeed in podcasting through Toastmasters. All the things that we do, they all apply in this process. You may have to learn some new technology, but embrace it, embrace the journey, and you'll have an amazing time.
Perfect bookend to a wonderful interview. And on behalf of all the happy people that are watching this all over the world, I thank you for coming to the Sunday Morning Chat Series with Jesse Oakley III. Thank you very much, Michael, for your time.
Jesse, I am thrilled that we did this. I thank you for circling back, and I can't wait to spend time with you and actually interview you at Podmasters.
All right, let's make it happen. Let's make it happen. And this concludes this episode of the Sunday Morning Chat Series on PR Connections. For more of the Sunday Morning Chat Series, come by and check it out every Sunday, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on PR Connections on YouTube. And for more of these episodes like this, I have opened up a brand new YouTube channel called Sunday Morning Chat Series with Jesse Oakley III. That's the name of the YouTube channel. So if you have the time to check out interviews from the past, or you may check out the first interview I did with Michael, just go to Sunday Morning Chat Series with Jesse Oakley III. Follow, subscribe, like, and comment on the videos. And this is all about happy people. And who knows what will happen next Sunday on Sunday Morning Chat Series. And this concludes this episode of the Sunday Morning Chat Series with Jesse Oakley III. This is your host, Jesse Oakley III, saying take care of yourselves. And until next time, happy people, bye.
Bye.
PR Connections Radio thanks you for watching this podcast. Check out more episodes of this show and our others at prconnectionsradio.com. PR Connections Radio thanks you for watching this podcast. Check out more episodes of this show and our others at prconnectionsradio.com.